this personal specification. Even in the interview, there are sometimes in this personal specification table, they have written things like you will be assessed for these things at the time of shortlisting, you will be assessed for this thing at the time of interview. So read it carefully. And even if you are preparing for interview, then read your personal specification and try to make sure you possess all these things. Like try to say these things in your introduction part. Okay, so we were here at this level. So in this job, they require SHO experience for more than 6 months. It is in the essential criteria. But sometimes, even if you are like, I think even if you are applying on this job with essential criteria, having 6 months SHO experience, even if you don't have the experience, you can get shortlisted. So don't worry about that. If you are fulfilling most of the things, then apply on that job and apply on all the SHO jobs, apply on all the F1's job, apply on all the F2's job, apply on junior clinical fellow, like everything that is in the list, apply on those things, SHO level things. You will get used to the system. I started as F1 because I was thinking it will be more appropriate for me because of my career gap. And I think my career gap was almost 3.5 years. And I think it was a wise decision because I'm learning at this level, and hopefully within next 6 months, I will be going for another job, maybe in the same hospital, or I will be switching. It's an option for me. But that was a wise decision, I think, for me to start at F1 level. So it's up to you. After that, they have another thing, NHS experience at SHO level for at least 6 months. But you can see it's not in the it's not in the essential criteria. It's a desirable criteria, so it doesn't matter. Even if you don't have any experience, you can apply. And second thing, clinical attachment is counted as NHS experience. So if you have clinical attachment anywhere in NHS, you can quote that thing in your job application, in your interview, both. And after that, the rest of the things, like these things, aware of the limitation, understand confidentiality, all these things, they will be there in all the jobs. So you can read carefully the personal specification of some of the jobs initially, and then try to tailor your CV according to that. And whenever you are applying, just have a read of those personal specification thing. If you think there is something written in the essential criteria for that particular job and you don't have that, then add that in your profile as well. Is it clear so far? Any question for me till here? There are a lot of things here, and some of them are in essential criteria, some of them are in desirable criteria. And in NHS job supporting information, there is a lot of space, so you can write down all these things, but there is a way of writing it down. I will tell you about that as well. I hope if Dr. Annie can join us, she will be going through that in detail, but I will try to cover it briefly, if and we will hopefully arrange another session about that soon. So that was about personal specification. And in the same way, in the job description, all the job description, okay, you can read that, but your post, okay, and try to include your post role. Like we have done all these things, even when we are working overseas, the job roles that I am supposed to do as F1, F2, SHO in UK, I have done those things in my country as well. But we are not keen to write all those things. So read that personal specification and job description, and whatever has been written there, try to include that in your CV. Now I am going to tell you how. Okay. So that's it. After reading these job description and person specification, apply for that particular job and try to do that as early as you can. Don't wait till the ending date. Okay? Closing date for this job is 6/10/2021. Don't wait for that. Try to apply as early as you can, because sometimes some of the jobs, they will close soon, not at the time that has been mentioned. And it will be great if you are applying during the working hours in UK time on the newest jobs. And but if you are doing this, hopefully you will get shortlisted soon for the interviews. I'm going to briefly cover the profile as well. Please avoid copying my profile, and because if everybody is having same profile and same profiles are rotating in the pool, then it's not good for everybody. And I just want to show you the headings and things, how you can highlight the things here. So if you can see from the beginning, like the things that you should be adding in your NHS profile is that why I am fit for the post, why they should hire you, why you are the right choice for them. Secondly, what are your clinical attributes, what is your clinical experience, what aims and objectives you have. Similarly, if you have done any research, any audit experience, anything else, any teaching experience, try to include that in your CV, because everybody is having one unique thing. Everybody is having one unique thing that will be present only in that particular person, and nobody else will be having that. Even if it is a volunteer work somewhere, even if it's a teaching experience which is non-clinical, but it's your thing, and try to include your thing. Don't ignore it. If you have MSc in some subject, if you have any PhD, include that in your CV. So my first heading is why I am fit for this post. Then after that, you can write down your personal skills and attributes, and all these things can be found in your job description. So these are the same things. In this, you will be including your soft skills, your language skills, and like you are taking care of the patient's privacy, you are aware of your limitations, these kind of stuff, you will include them. And if you can see, I have written down in bullet points, not as a paragraph. In paragraphs, if you are writing in paragraphs, then these things are not being highlighted more. And then the next headings is why I am applying for this post. What are my benefits in this post? So most of the time you are writing that this post is a right start for you because it will be allowing you a lot of clinical and developmental opportunities. You will be able to do audit, you will be able to do research while working here. Similarly, next thing is experience relevant to the job. Whatever experience you have overseas, include that. And the things that I was talking about, this part, you can easily find it in job description of your particular post. And we are doing all this stuff back in our home countries. So you just have to include these things in your CV. Doing ward rounds, clerking, doing blood sampling, and then working in multidisciplinary team and pain management. You are able to use A to E approach, these kind of stuff. And then if you have internship, okay, so here you will go in chronological order. First, comment on your internship. Afterwards, whatever job you have done. If you have done some, like I have 7 months experience, if you have done 1 year job anywhere, then include that and the experience you got from that job, and try to fit in that particular post. If you have any ALS, BLS, try to include that. And then if you have any teaching experience, if you have any audit experience, I don't have any audit experience, I don't have any research experience, I had teaching experience, so I highlighted that one. And then e-learning modules, I have done some e-learning modules, I included those in my CV. I have added them previously in my NHS profile. There was a section in which you have to write your education and the like degrees you have so far. In that portion, also there is a section where you can write these modules, but try to give I would say a summary of each and everything in your supporting information, because I don't know if it's true or not, but I have heard that sometimes they will not be able to see your whole profile, so they will only look at this portion, supporting information, and the rest of the portion like this management skills, audit, this portion, supporting information portion in a whole. So, and they will shortlist you based on that. I don't know if it's true or not, but still it's a good to give a good summary in this part. Here you have word limit of, I think 1500 or 2000 words, and all these things can fit in here. And at the end, I have written my future goals, whatever you want to do in future, and that's it. That's the NHS profile. That's how you should be making your profile, I think. Let me get back. So any questions so far? And the take home message for this NHS profile is try to write in bullet points, try to write down the headings wherever you can, and try to make your profile unique in some way. Like everybody is having something that others will not be having that thing. Include that in your NHS profile, and later in the interview, it will be the same story. So they can like anything about you. They can like your audit. They can like your teaching experience. They can like your some volunteer work, like if you have been a part of polio campaign, if you have been a part of any other thing, they can like it. So don't think it is for no use. If you have done anything out of the clinical work, you can include that in your CV as well and in the interview as well. So we have already spoken about these things. And after that, there are certain things that we can do to improve our CV. For the person like me, like I told you, I have a career gap. And after that, I was involved in PLAB 2 teaching. So I included that in my CV in teaching experience, and it was very beneficial. Trust me. I got interviews, and in the interviews, they were very impressed by this. Like I was teaching online teaching and all. If you are doing anything like that, and if you think it's not that great thing, but maybe your supervisor is more interested in that particular thing. So after that, the BLS and ALS, most of the time we are not in overseas, we are not having any opportunity to do BLS, ALS. So since I was from in UAE, so I did this, I did BLS, EBLS from this Pro Training UK, and I included that in my CV. And in interview, when they asked me about BLS, I told them that I have EBLS and I am thinking to do ALS after getting my first job in NHS, because in the first job, they are paying you for your ALS. There is a study budget and they pay you. So even if you want to do something, I will advise you to do BLS, because BLS is cheaper as compared to ALS. ALS is more expensive. It's up to you if you want to do it, but they are not. Don't usually require it. If you have done BLS, then it's fine. People who are already in UK, try to book your BLS from Research UK. If you can do it, it will be great. It will be a very positive thing in your CV. If you have audit and research, well and good. If you don't have it and you are already working somewhere overseas, try to do audit. In countries like my country, audit is a new thing and we are not usually aware of audit, but you can get a lot of help. There are people who can guide you about that. And try to include at least one audit in your CV if you can. If you cannot, then I attended a course by Adam Jakes, NHS Clinical Governance course, and I added that in my CV. If you are already doing a clinical attachment in NHS, then it is possible to do audit while doing clinical attachment. You can ask your clinical supervisor to include you in an audit, and I have seen people who have done audit while on clinical attachment. Third thing is that online modules. A lot of websites are there. Coursera, edX, FutureLearn. There is another website, I haven't mentioned it here, like it's Stanford University e-learning. It offers very good courses about COVID and about different specialty. So wherever, like I haven't paid for any course yet, but wherever you can find free course, and it is about acute medical conditions, acute surgical conditions, or if you are going for psychiatry, it can be about that as well. You can do that and include that in your CV. Okay, so I have covered this NHS profile, job description, and person specification. If you want some more details about it, then let us know and we will be arranging a more detailed discussion on that. So Dr. Stan wants to say something, I think.
Yes. Hi, Dr. Kurat.
Hi.
Thank you for this, and thank you for the PLAB 2 work that you did with us. Right. Just a quick one in terms of the NHS jobs profile, right? I understand we are applying for FY2 posts mostly. Now, some of the experience that we may have had from our home countries might be classified as being overqualified for an FY2 post. Do we put those again in our NHS profile, or we just put our foundation one competencies or FY2 competencies when you're applying for these jobs?
I think if you are overqualified, they can ask you if you are happy to work on that particular post, and it's your choice, right? So you can say that as it is a new system for you, so you want to start from the basics so that you can adjust well in the new system. And I don't think if you have anything include in your CV, if you are the one who is having 10 things, like if you are having 3 years experience after internship, and there is another candidate who is having no experience after internship, then I think you will be the one who is having more chances of getting shortlisted for that job. So I don't think if it's like you are new here in NHS, and even if you are like, I have internship and I am working again as an internee here as F1, it was my choice. So nobody will say why you want to work on a junior level, although I have done my internship. So it's your choice if you want to start from the junior level, because the thing is that, like I'm telling you about surgery. In F1, your job responsibility is very minor. At such a level, you have more responsibilities. You have to guide your F1s as well. Apart from that, you will be liaising with different consultants and teams and all. If you are a reg, your responsibility is double. Initially, you will be shadowing someone, obviously, but afterwards, it will be you who will be making decisions. If you are on call, your consultant is with you. I'm telling you about surgery. I don't know about medicine, how it works. If you are on call, like if we are on call, we are usually 1 or 2 F1s, 1 SHO, and 1 reg. And consultant is there, but consultant is mainly in theater. So if some patient is sick in ER, basically I'm not in A&E. There is another ambulatory unit, so I'm working in that while on call. So if some patient is sick in that unit, then reg will be the one who will be making decisions, right? So it is a big responsibility role. So initially you can work at a junior role for a year or maybe for 6 months, and afterwards, when you know the system, you can always go for a higher role. It's up to you.
Okay. All right. And then in terms of the audit as well, like you rightfully said, most of the countries where we are coming from, audits are not something that is emphasized a lot. But you would have done some quality improvement project, which probably was not written down. Like you just have a meeting at the hospital and then you're like, okay, most of our patients are getting post-operative wound infections. What can we do? Then you just make some corrections to the way you're managing patients, but it's not written down anyway that you did a quality improvement or an audit. Can you include those in your profile, since they say that they want evidence of those things?
Actually, it is a quality improvement project is not like it is not published, right? So whatever thing you have done in that purpose, you can include that. It's always a good thing, and they will ask you in your interview as well. Okay. So what is quality improvement and what is audit? So audit is basically a cycle in which you are identifying a problem first, and then you are going to compare some guidelines and coming up with something that will improve the clinical experience. When you are talking about quality improvement project, it is to improve the patient's experience. It can be anything. It can be making some changes in the discharge note. It can be something like coming up with a performa, or coming up with some simple listing while working in some OPD or working in ER, and you developed some listing. For example, you were seeing diabetic patient, and their BSR was and his information was scattered on different you can say notes. So while you checked him, you thought all the information, if it is at one place, then it will be easier for us to follow that patient again in the future. And you devised something like you written down his previous BSR, his recent readings, his previous readings, and you made some table for him for his charting. And in this way, like, it is a very simple thing, and I think we usually do this in our clinical experience. This will be a quality improvement project. You
All right.
improve the quality of care for the patient, and later on your seniors saw that, and everybody, they tried to follow that thing.
Okay. All right. No, thank you.
It can be anything, Dr. Stan, like there were some presentations or some teaching sessions going on. You came up with PowerPoint presentation, and because you think with PowerPoint presentation, the outcome is different. It is more beneficial for people, because when they are only listening, uh, it is better to teach them while they are looking at the screen along with the listening. Like what I am doing here is I found PowerPoint presentation more better, instead of just talking and talking and talking. So,
All right.
so this is also a quality improvement project.
All right.
All right.
Thank you.
You are welcome. And I was not having any audit, but I did some, as I mentioned earlier, I did some course, clinical governance course, and it awarded me some CPD points as well, and a certificate as well. Maybe it was not that beneficial, but at least I had something to add in my CV. And my clinical governance part of NHS profile was not empty. I added that in there, that I have done this course and I am looking to start my new job in NHS, so that I can be involved in an audit, and I'm keen to do audit. Most of the time, they have written understanding of the audit. So at the time of interview, they will be checking your understanding. What do you know about audit? They don't want just definition. They want how you interpret that definition. And if you know what is audit, what is clinical experience, this quality improvement project, these kind of stuff. It is usually not essential criteria, but even if it is an essential criteria, you can get shortlisted depending on the person who is doing all this shortlisting. So don't worry about that. Okay, so somebody. Okay. Gaps are your personal choice, so I don't think it is important. Like, as long as you are covering your gaps with good, like, it can be a study gap, it can be a, like, you were traveling, it can be a maternity gap. It doesn't matter, as long as you have impressed them in the interview. And if you got shortlisted even with a gap, they know that you have a gap and you got shortlisted for the interview. So it doesn't matter if you have gap, as long as you are covering them well. You were in touch with your profession, you kept doing some online stuff, the online modules. If you can do some research, or you are doing a non-clinical job but it was a research job, so that is also a good experience. So I think 3 to 4 years gap is not that much important. You shouldn't be worried about that. Okay, so anything else? Anybody wants to share something?
Hello, Dr. Kurat.
Hello, Dr. Sabrina.
Nice to hear you again.
Same here.
Welcome to the UK. I have one question. You told that about FY1 job. Is this means I